So I want you to imagine trying to navigate your current daily routine, but your coffee table is suddenly 2 stories tall.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a terrifying thought.
Right. And like a single step on your staircase comes all the way up to your chest. The distance from your front door to the mailbox basically requires a full, dedicated sprint.
It's exhausting just picturing it.
Exactly.
Wow.
When you try to apply a standard, human-sized ruler to a creature that weighs less than a gallon of milk, the basic math of daily life it completely breaks down.
It really does. You're dealing with a total biological and physical paradigm shift here.
Yeah.
When an animal operates on that micro scale, the mechanics of the world, gravity, temperature, distance, they interact with their bodies in ways that are just entirely alien to a human being.
Which is exactly why we're here today. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at this incredibly detailed set of notes from the Chihuahua Health Academy.
Specifically, it's season 21, episode 4, called Small Steps, Real Strength.
Yes, thank you. And the mission for you, the listener, as we go through this, is to completely dismantle what people casually call the purse dog myth.
Oh, I love that we're tackling this. It's so needed.
Right. We are going way beyond the stereotypes to examine the literal physics, the anatomy, and the psychology of what it takes for one of the smallest mammals on Earth to navigate a purely human-built world.
And, even if you are strictly a large breed person, or, I don't know, a cat person, the scientific reality of how drastic shifts in scale alter an animal's biological needs. It's just a fascinating mental exercise.
It really is.
You cannot just shrink a standard dog down to 6 pounds and assume the operating manual stays the exact same. It just doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. Which kind of brings us to the most pervasive myth in the source material, the assumption that because they are so tiny, they simply don't need to move.
Right. The whole, they're an exercise-free dog label.
Exactly. The notes call out this exercise-free label as actively damaging. But, I have to be honest here. I look at a 4-pound dog on a busy city sidewalk, and my first instinct is that picking it up and carrying it in a bag just seems vastly more efficient and, honestly, infinitely safer for everyone involved.
It's a completely natural human reaction.
Right, because the logistics of walking them just seem kind of impossible. Okay,
Yes.
Let's unpack this. Because if they are so small, wouldn't carrying them everywhere just be the most logical solution?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the source explicitly identifies that exact human instinct. That urge to scoop them up to protect them as a primary source of their behavioral issues.
Wait, really? The protecting them is the problem?
Yeah, exactly. When you carry an animal constantly, you're forcing them into the role of a passive observer. You are literally stripping away their agency.
Oh, I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, they lose the opportunity to map their environment, to understand where their own body is in space, and to develop just baseline musculoskeletal strength.
But the counter argument is usually about their stride length, right?
Sure, yeah.
Like, a golden retriever takes a single, casual step, and the Chihuahua is doing this frantic, plyometric workout just to keep pace. Walking around the block for us is like a cross-country trek for them.
It is a totally different scale.
So the math of the walk is completely different. How do you actually measure what is enough exercise when the geometry of their stride is just so completely disproportionate to ours?
Well, you measure it by time and engagement, not by human miles. The source establishes a baseline of about 20 to 30 minutes of daily activity for an adult.
Okay, 20 to 30 minutes. That's actually not that crazy.
No, it's very manageable. Yeah. And ideally, that's split into shorter sessions. You aren't taking them on a forced march,
Yeah.
You're letting them move at their natural, albeit rapid, cadence.
Got it. So they set the pace.
Right. And when they're on the ground, supporting their own weight, firing their own muscles to propel themselves forward, they're maintaining bone density and joint stability.
Which I'm guessing completely atrophies if they just live in a tote bag all day.
Exactly. It completely atrophies.
Okay, and the text makes a really compelling pivot here. Because while that 20 minutes is physically vital, the real heavy lifting of the walk is actually happening neurologically.
Oh, absolutely.
The physical walk is secretly a mental workout.
It is entirely about sensory processing and exposure. When a dog is walking under its own power, every passing bicycle, every strange shadow, every loud truck, it's an input they have to process.
Right, they have to figure out if it's a threat or not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if they are on the ground and allowed to observe, say, a larger dog passing by calmly, They are building resilience. You're building boldness through distance and positive reinforcement.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the walk is basically doing double duty.
It really is.
It's like if going to the gym was also your daily exposure therapy session. You aren't just building muscle, you're actively constructing a secure temperament. You're proving to the dog that the environment isn't constantly trying to kill them.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it fundamentally changes how we view their notorious behavior. Frustrated owners often complain about a dog that lunges, snaps, or barks frantically at everything.
Yeah, the classic ankle biter stereotype.
Right. We label that as bad behavior. But biologically, you are looking at an incredibly alert, engaged mind that is suffering from sensory overload.
It was never allowed to process the world incrementally.
Precisely. It lacks a proper outlet. The outdoor sights and sounds are the ultimate mental stimulation, the ultimate puzzle for their brain to solve.
But the notes highlight a trap that a lot of well-meaning owners fall into, which is the small house misconception.
Oh, this is a huge one.
Yeah, the logic goes that if a dog only weighs 5 pounds, a standard apartment actually provides massive square footage. Like, to them, a living room is an entire football field.
Right, so they think, why isn't that enough?
Exactly. Why isn't letting them run laps around the coffee table enough exercise?
Because of olfactory fatigue.
And factory fatigue.
Yeah, dogs experience the world primarily through their nose, not their eyes. So a house, no matter how physically large it seems to a tiny dog, smells exactly the same on Tuesday as it did on Monday.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
It is a stagnant sensory environment. Imagine being locked in a massive, beautifully decorated mansion, but every single book on the shelves is just the same single page printed over and over again.
Wow. Yeah, you go crazy.
Right. You have room to run, but your brain is starved for novelty.
Now, the source does offer some indoor workarounds, right? For days when a walk genuinely isn't possible because of severe weather.
Yes, definitely.
Things like using puzzle toys, scattering their meals so they have to forage around the furniture, or just running short, highly focused training sessions.
To make them think, yeah.
Right, but the text is clear that those are stopgaps. They don't replace the rush of new data they get from an actual sidewalk.
Exactly. Those indoor games are fantastic supplements, but they cannot replicate the complex, unpredictable data streams of the outdoor world. They just can't.
So if we accept that they absolutely must be on the ground, navigating the physical world, we have to talk about the literal hardware taking the impact.
The skeleton.
Yeah. The notes dedicate a massive section to joint mechanics, particularly because these dogs have incredibly long lifespans.
Yeah. You are looking at an animal that can easily live 15 to 18 years.
18 years. That's almost 2 decades.
It's a very long time for a microscopic skeleton to endure the forces of a human-sized environment. And the primary villain here is repetitive vertical impact.
The text specifically flags jumping off standard furniture, which, I mean, that seems harmless to us, but the text ties it directly to a structural failure called a luxating patella.
Yes.
Can you walk us through the actual anatomy of what is happening in a tiny dog's knee when they leap off a sofa?
Sure. So a luxating patella is essentially a kneecap that slips out of its designated groove in the thigh bone.
Oh, yikes. That sounds painful.
It is. And in many microbreeds, that groove, it's called the trochlear groove, is genetically quite shallow to begin with.
Okay, so it's already kind of precarious.
Exactly. So when a 5-pound dog launches itself off a 2-foot-high sofa, the kinetic energy their body absorbs upon landing is immense relative to their mass.
Right, it's like a human jumping off a wall.
Over time, that repetitive, high-impact plyometric shock stretches the ligaments. And it literally forces that tiny kneecap to pop out of its shallow track.
So what does this all mean for daily life then? Because like we said, how do we strike the balance between not bubble wrapping them, but also practically redesigning our living rooms? The physics basically dictate that a living room is a dangerous obstacle course.
It means modifying the environment to remove the vertical drops, not stopping the play altogether. You want to eliminate the high-impact jumps, not all physical exertion.
So ramps.
Yes. The source advocates heavily for small ramps or padded stairs leading up to furniture. You aren't bubble wrapping the dog. You are acting like an ergonomic consultant.
An ergonomic consultant for a Chihuahua. I love that.
That's really what it is. You're smoothing out the extreme vertical demands of a human house so they can still exert themselves horizontally without, destroying the cartilage in their stifle joint.
And the timeline of when you apply these ergonomic fixes really matters, according to the notes. They break down the life stages, starting with puppies, and the warning here is pretty intense. Overexercising a puppy is structurally devastating.
It really is because their skeleton simply isn't finished.
Right.
Mammals have growth plates at the ends of their long bones, which are areas of soft, developing cartilage.
Okay.
If you take a 4-month-old Chihuahua and force it on a rigorous, repetitive 2-mile walk on hard concrete, you are applying massive stress to soft tissue that is actively trying to solidify.
Oh, man. So you can really mess them up for life.
You risk permanent skeletal deformation. Puppies require gentle, short, self-directed bursts of play where they can just stop the second they feel fatigue.
Okay, so then they hit adulthood, around that 1-year mark, which is when they hit their physical peak and you target that 20 to 30-minute sweet spot we talked about.
Exactly.
But then comes the senior phase, which, as we established, can last for a third of their entire life. And the mandate shifts entirely from building fitness to just preserving mobility.
And this requires a highly observant owner.
Why is that? Do they not show pain like other dogs?
Well, a senior tiny dog will not always vocalize pain. You have to watch for the subtle biomechanical cues. Are they hesitating before a step they used to take easily? Is their stride shortening? Are they panting heavily after 3 blocks instead of 10?
So you really have to recognize genuine fatigue.
Right. You adjust the parameters. The goal for a senior dog is just keeping the joints lubricated and the mind engaged, even if that means a 10-minute, incredibly slow sniff walk down a single block. Protective habits formed early pay massive dividends during those senior years.
That delicate balance of internal mechanics is just fascinating, but it gets even more intense when you factor in the external load.
Oh, for sure.
I want to look at the physics of body weight on this microscale next, because the source material treats nutrition and exercise as this inseparable, strict team.
They absolutely have to be. The margin for error on a skeletal frame that small is virtually non-existent.
Let's do the math on this for the listener, because it blew my mind.
Yeah.
If a human gains 2 pounds over a holiday weekend, it's basically a rounding error on the scale.
Right, you barely notice it.
But the notes point out that a 2-pound weight gain on a tiny breed is catastrophic. It is proportionally like a human putting on a massive amount of weight overnight.
Let's look at the actual percentages. If a healthy dog weighs 6 pounds, a 2-pound weight gain is a 33% increase in total body mass.
33%. That is insane.
To put that in human terms, imagine a 150-pound person suddenly waking up carrying an extra 50 pounds of weight.
Oh my God.
But their skeletal structure, their heart, and their lungs didn't upgrade to support it. The sheer mechanical load on those tiny Chalanigros we just discussed increases exponentially.
The joints just aren't built for it. And if they do cross into obesity, the notes are incredibly stern about how to handle the weight loss. You cannot just drastically cut their calories or force them onto a treadmill.
No. Doing so would trigger a cascade of secondary failures.
Like what?
Well, rapid calorie restriction in a tiny mammal can cause life-threatening drops in blood sugar. It's known as hypoglycemia.
Oh, wow.
And forcing an overweight tiny dog into high-impact exercise, that will immediately shred those overloaded joints.
So how do you fix it?
Source insists that weight loss at this scale must be agonizingly gradual, incredibly low impact, and strictly monitored by a vet to ensure metabolic stability.
Which perfectly transitions us from the dangers of internal mass to the dangers of the external environment, specifically the weather.
Ah, yes, the elements.
Now, I have absolutely judged people pushing dogs in strollers or putting them in these elaborate fleece sweaters. I'll admit it. It just looks like a ridiculous human indulgence.
This raises an important question, though, about how our human perception of the world completely overrides biological reality.
What do you mean?
Well, we mock the sweater because we view it through the lens of human fashion. We are projecting our own thermodynamics onto an animal that does not share them.
Talk to me about those thermodynamics, because the source says they lose heat incredibly quickly. But what is the actual mechanism making them so much colder than, say, a larger dog in the exact same weather?
It comes down to the surface area to volume ratio.
Okay.
This is a fundamental principle of physics. A small object has a massive amount of surface area relative to its internal volume. Think about a tiny cup of espresso versus a huge vat of soup.
Okay, yeah. The espresso cools off way faster.
Exactly. It goes cold in minutes because there is less internal mass holding the heat and a lot of surface area exposed to the air, bleeding that heat away. A tiny dog is the espresso.
That is a great analogy.
They physically cannot generate enough metabolic heat to counteract the rapid loss through their skin.
So a sweater isn't an outfit. It's an engineered microclimate.
Yes.
It's functional thermal gear trapping the heat against their skin, so their internal organs don't have to work overtime just to prevent hypothermia.
Precisely. It is a vital survival tool, not a fashion accessory. And the flip side is equally dangerous, by the way.
Heat safety.
Yes. In extreme heat, that same rapid thermal transfer works against them. Their bodies heat up much faster than a large dog's. And because they are so low to the ground, they are absorbing the ambient heat radiating directly off the asphalt.
Oh, right, because they're literally inches from the pavement.
Exactly. Hot pavement will blister their sensitive paw pads in seconds, long before a human wearing thick, rubber-soled shoes even realizes the ground is warm.
It requires just an exhausting level of environmental awareness from the owner.
It really does.
And speaking of the environment, there was one detail in the hazard section of these notes that stopped me in my tracks.
Oh, I think I know which one you're talking about.
We all know to watch out for moving vehicles or, a loose, aggressive, larger dog in the park. But the source explicitly highlights large birds of prey as a daily, severe outdoor hazard.
It is a very sobering reminder of their actual place in the food web.
I honestly thought the whole hawk swooping down thing was a dramatic urban legend, like a myth. But the notes treat it as a routine biological reality. You aren't just scanning the sidewalk, you literally have to scan the sky.
You have to strip away the domestic labels. To a hawk or an owl, a 4-pound Chihuahua is not a beloved family pet.
Right, they don't care about its color.
No, it is simply a small mammal in an open area. It is exactly the size of their natural prey.
That is terrifying.
This is why the source is absolutely uncompromising on the use of secure leashes and properly fitted harnesses for their entire lives.
So the leash isn't just to keep them from running away?
No, the leash is a literal anchor tying them to a larger predator, which is you. And that is what deters the aerial attack.
It is wild to realize that when you step out your front door, you are instantly managing predator-prey dynamics in the middle of a suburb.
It's a completely different reality.
So let's pull all these threads together for the listener. Our mission was to dismantle the purse dog myth, and I think plunging into the physics of their existence absolutely achieves that.
The overriding takeaway here is that their biological needs are intense and complex.
Yeah.
The scale of the animal dictates a complete overhaul of how we manage their movement, their safety, and their mental health.
Right. From the very baseline of needing 20 to 30 minutes of actual ground-level movement to maintain their proprioception and bone density.
Exactly.
Understanding that the walk is a neurological necessity to prevent the sensory overload that actually causes that reactivity.
Right.
We looked at the mechanical vulnerability of their knees, proving that ramps are an ergonomic necessity, not coddling. And we explored the unforgiving physics of weight gain, surface area thermodynamics, and the literal threats circling in the sky.
They require a hyper-vigilant, highly intentional management strategy. You cannot treat them as a robust, large breed shrunk down. And you absolutely cannot treat them as an inanimate stuffed animal.
Which leads me to one final thought from the source material that I want to leave you, the listener, with today.
Oh, this is a great point to end on.
The notes point out that this breed's famously bold, sometimes aggressive personality isn't a new flaw. It's a trait they've carried for centuries. They likely once trotted through quiet, ancient temple courtyards.
Right.
Now, compare that environment to today.
The contrast is staggering.
It is. Think about the sensory reality of the modern world for a creature that size. Towering skyscrapers, the concussive roar of a diesel bus, slick hardwood floors, and chaotic dog parks filled with animals 20 times their size.
That's a lot to process.
When you really visualize navigating that matrix at a height of 6 inches, how much of what we casually dismiss as bad behavior or small dog syndrome is actually just a completely rational evolutionary response?
It really makes you rethink everything.
Perhaps their boldness isn't a behavioral flaw at all. In a world built entirely out of scale for them, that fierce, unyielding attitude might be the exact survival mechanism that kept them from disappearing entirely.
Absolutely.
It's definitely something to chew on the next time you see a tiny dog holding its ground on a giant sidewalk. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.